New investors are often very nervous about having to manage contractors for their very first house flip. However, it can be especially scary if you're planning to do this completely virtually. So I actually flip all of my houses virtually now, and I want to share just a couple tips that I've had to manage my contractors completely virtually, just so that you don't have to go through the same mistakes and process and struggle that I had to go through. And if you're new to the channel, my name's Justin You're Wrong, and I've helped hundreds of people make money in real estate. All right, my first tip is to create a budget and a timeline upfront. And you can work with contractors on this, but before even starting the project, you want to have an idea of what your budget will be. And this is not something that you should share to the contractors right away. It's just something that you have to have in your mind. So first, when you're making your offers, you have to budget something in the repair cost or the rehab, and you have to be able to know that when you're reaching out to these contractors, it has to fit within the budget. Otherwise, you're gonna lose money. And when you're getting your initial bids, like let's say you budget for this amount, 10K, and all the bids are coming in at 15K. From there, you really have to work with your contractors to kind of get where you want to get. So maybe you have to pull out a couple things in the rehab that might not affect the value of the resale. For example, like you can go a little bit cheaper on the lights or the fixtures, but still do the like granite countertops or whatever. Like you really have to work with the contractors on that. So I know that you're probably not going to be an expert in constructions or rehabs, but don't worry, like you don't have to be. You really can lean on the contractors for this stuff. This is stuff that I still do to this day. Like I'm not a construction guy. However, I'm still able to flip houses because I lean on my contractors. Like if I don't know anything, I'm like, hey, like how much would this cost? Like, what if we did this instead? Or like, just ask like, what would be cheaper? You know, you can be real with them. Like, you're like, hey, this is a flip. Like, I need to make money on this. What can we pull out? And then from there, like, if they itemize every single thing when they're initially giving their bid, you can see, okay, like this thing costs this much, this thing costs this much, and then you can start thinking to yourself, like, this really won't affect the resale value that much, or like, if anything, it's just something that I wanted. Like, let's pull it out. Like from there, you just have to work with the contractors on that. And the same thing goes for the timeline too. So you might not know how long rehabs typically go. And again, lean on the contractors. Again, every contractor might say something different, but typically most of my rehabs, like full rehabs, go honestly like 6 to 8 weeks. Yeah, I just kind of lean on the contractors for that. And I do my best to anticipate. And if I'm ever skeptical and like if the contractor thinks you can do it super fast, I just budget more. That's kind of what I'd say about the initial budget and the timeline. And also when you're getting the bids, this is if you're virtual or in person, doesn't matter, but get more than one bid. Now, the reason why you should get more than one bid, and I try to get at least 3 bids on any project, is contractors are people, and everyone is working for their own self-interest. So if you tell someone that they're the only person you're getting a bid on, even if they're super professional, super honest people, if they know that they have no other competition, they might not be super cheap on their bid. They might make their prices a little bit higher. Whereas if they know other people are bidding on this thing, they might be a little bit more competitive with their prices. Now, I'm not shaming contractors. This is just like humans. This is how humans are. People are just working for their own interests. So just maybe let them know that you're getting other bids too, so that they can stay competitive. And I'm sure there are a ton of contractors who will be like perfectly honest, perfectly cheap with their bids regardless if they know they're the only person. But I'm just saying, like, rule of thumb is get more than one, because you might have a bid that comes in at 30K rehab, 27K, 32K rehab, and then from there you kind of figure out, okay, like, why are these different? Like, what are you guys charging for? Especially if you ask them to itemize their bids, which is essentially like break down the cost of every single thing, then you get a real good idea of, I want to go with this person because either the price or whatever. But also know that, you know, cheapest price isn't always best. Sometimes it's the person that you know you can trust, especially being virtual. Like, I can't stress this enough. I've been burned by working with a contractor who I thought I trusted, and communication was so poor, he ended up backing out of the job when I was midway, out of money, and I was like, okay, like, I really have to pick someone I can trust now. So it's all about trust, being virtual, someone who can update you well, communicate well. My second tip is to pay them in increments. So as far as compensating them, paying them for the job, do not pay them everything up front. So if you have a 25K rehab project for the entire thing, don't give them $25K before they did any work. Now I know some people might think like, that's stupid, why'd you do that? You'd be surprised. Be careful, don't do that. And how you pay them also depends on the level of trust you have. Like sometimes for my contractors, I'll give my trusted ones like a little startup check, so they can do the demo, they can do the cleaning, and they can start buying materials right away. So that's like for my trusted contractors. For my new contractors, I typically just pay them after they do their work. Maybe they need money to buy the materials or whatever, and there's like different ways to pay contractors. A lot of people, a lot of my friends, a lot of them pay strictly after the labor's done. So after they do install the work, then they'll pay them. Some of them like to pay for the materials first at Home Depot, like straight from their card. Like the investor pays at Home Depot for the materials, and then the contractor has the materials, then the contractor installs, and then they pay the contractor. So like I actually don't do that unless it's a brand new contractor and I have no trust, because then like that's the safest way to stay safe, is you never have money, or you never have your money in the contractor's hands until after the work's done. So like that's the safest way. A lot of the ways that I'll pay my contractors now is one, my trusted contractors, give them startup check for like the initial demo, rehab, whatever. But then after that, I just want to see like they've done enough work to justify the next increment. And so typically I'll pay in like 5K increments. They use it up, and then they can show me like the progress of the home. They can show me like, hey, like look what we've done so far. We spend the money for this, 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 and this. If it makes sense and it looks like the progress is coming along enough, then I can say, hey, like, all right, here's the next check. But most times it's like, hey, like actually, can you do this next thing? Whatever it is, and then I'll give you the next check. And so typically contractors, they work well with that. Like, oh cool, like you just gotta do this and I'll get the check. And if you're paying up front for any kind of startup check for the demo, cleanup, buying materials, like be cautious, real cautious, until you have like a real trusted contractor, someone you have a relationship with. That's just my advice there. My third tip is to get a project manager. And if you don't know what a project manager is, I actually don't even know its full definition, but I call him a project manager. It's a person to manage the project. So you already are likely getting a general contractor who's managing all the subcontractors to like get the work done, but then someone has to be in charge of babysitting the general contractor to make sure the project is coming along. They're like held accountable to check on the property at least twice a week in person. So like this is something, if you're gonna be doing this virtual like I do, like I can't see my homes in person. I'm not gonna fly a state away twice a week to check on my properties. I just have them check on the property twice a week at random times to make sure that they're actually working on the project. And if the contractors are ever not there, they're instructed to call the contractors and hey, like what's going on? Like why aren't you working on the project? Like basically like they're keeping them accountable, they're holding their feet to the fire, and they're the one who's like essentially the face of the rehab. So if anything is like needed before they get paid, the contractor talks to the project manager directly. So that's kind of what the project manager is for, and it honestly will take a lot of stress off your plate if you're trying to manage it virtually. Like if you're watching this, I don't know if you've managed a project yet, it's a lot of stress, a lot of headspace. So if you're gonna be doing it virtually, it's especially hard because you can't see the home in person, so it can get extra stressful. So that's why it's good to have a project manager, aka like a boots on the ground, someone there that you trust, who's able to send you videos, pictures, give you true updates on the home of like, hey, like this contractor's not working at all, like, and it's like, okay, like, and then you just tell them like, make him work, like blow up his phone, like don't give him the next check. If you follow those 3 tips, you're gonna be just fine, and you're gonna be much better off than I was when I just got started flipping. So hopefully that helps, and if you just need help with your real estate investing business, I want you to click on the link in the description for a free strategy session. Peace.